Welcome to this episode of the State of Black Man's Mental Health, and I'm Peuge Benjamin of Atomic Travels and Get My Cheese Back on My Cracker Foundation. On this episode, we're going to talk about how Black men, how one of my guests says it, love with energy and excitement because we do love, right? In this episode, we're going to talk about how Black men love and how often Black men have this perception of not being able to show love, express love, or emote love. And that is far from the truth. We want to give you guys a chance to allow us to dive deep into how we show love and express love to the ones around us, our friends, family, and just everybody. I want to kind of start a little bit on my own, right? I started this journey with this beautiful woman. I want to say April of 2020 when the world shut down. And it was one of those things where her and I met on a dating app, which will remain nameless until you guys send me a check. But we really got a vibe going, and 2 years later, this past April, we got married in Marrakesh, Morocco. One of our guests was a pleasant dropper inner on the experience, but we loved them nonetheless. But really wanted to say that to show that we really know how to show love. It just takes us a little longer in a different way to emote how we love the people around us. And so, with that being said, I want to bring on our guests so they can talk about how they love and what love means to them. So we're going to bring up, the most exciting man on the show, just one of the most exciting men on the show. He calls himself the most blessed man alive. So we're going to bring on Brother Tunji. Brother Tunji, tell the people who you are.
Yeah, my name is Tunji Adebayo. I am the most blessed man alive, born in Lagos, Nigeria. I came to the United States in 1995 when I was 5 years old. Been cooking and getting blessed since. I'm the youngest of nine, seven older sisters, black mama, black father, and when I think about love, I think about the fact that I was loved correctly. Right. And that's like, I've been loved from the black woman with that soft touch and that black woman with a heavy hand.
You getting ahead of us. Let's let the other fellas jump on. We just trying to make
my
sure.
bad.
We know you coming with that energy. I feel you, good
been
brother.
stirring in my head all day.
All right,
I want to get it out. But yeah, I'm excited to share.
I got you. And what do you do, Tunji, just before we bring everybody else on?
Oh, absolutely. So I am the Vision Alignment Officer and the founder of Rhyme LLC. It's a holistic health company for black men. The vision is getting 100 million black men in chasing flow state. And that's the healthiest version of them. So that's mental health, that's emotional, that's physical, that's nutrition, whatever it takes to get you one drop better every single day. Because, strength isn't, this is so heavy and I can lift it. Strength is I've taken care of myself so well that this is light and I don't realize that I'm carrying. So that's the vision.
All right.
So yeah, rhymellc.com. Hit me.
We'll talk about that afterwards. Co-host on the podcast too, right?
Oh yeah, talk. Thank you. Hey, see, that's what you hear. I'm also a co-host on a podcast, Pivot and Proceed podcast with Zuri and Kamal. We just finished the first season. It's dope, and it's just it's organic. It's dope. It's dope. We'll talk about that later too. That's another thing, another version of love.
That's definitely a dope conversation. And the next gentleman I'm gonna bring you on is the most authentic individual that we will have. He will also get himself in trouble after this episode, but you know what? You can't love, be vulnerable without the repercussions of the truth behind you, right? So we're going to bring on Brother Russell. And Brother Russell, I really want to tell you in front of everybody, I'm grateful for you, brother. When we tried this thing out a couple months ago and we had you on and we asked, where do you think the state of the black man's mental health was? And you said fractured. And you went on and told us how and why you thought it was fractured, bro. That left the audience with goosebumps. That left me as the host in goosebumps. So I'm forever grateful for you being vulnerable enough and talk about, where you were mentally and how you felt men were mentally. So with that, kudos. Please tell us who you are, and if you want to, what do you do?
So good afternoon. My name is Russell Cox. From Harlem, New York. Live down here in the DMV right now. Husband, father of one, going on two. And and I'm a manager at EY.
Nice. All right. And then we have the brother Augustine is going to join us from the Netherlands. We're having some technical difficulties over there, but we're going to continue with the conversation. All right. So one of the things is that people feel as though that Black men don't know how to emote love, express love, or love. All right. Which is far from the truth. We got 2 married men on here, and we got the most loving man in the world because he's so ultimately blessed. Right. So my question to you guys, and this is, and Tunji, you could tap on this, right? Because you started with the excitement. So we're going to start with you. Is it that Black men don't know how to love, or is it that they don't understand their own love language to articulate what it is that they need?
I think both. What you said, like, you can't give what you haven't received. And I think that the problem is people want Black men's love in a form that they don't know how to give yet, in a form they haven't been given. There's no, like, we are love, so you're gonna get it out of you what you have to give. But if somebody wants to, you know, you to break down and cry about a situation when that's never been okay in your life, it's not gonna come out of you until you get a dynamic where that's felt is okay, or you're just at the bottom of the bottom. So when I think about why I'm able to navigate the way I have, like, well, even when I think about my journey, that's not necessarily true. For about 5 to 10 years, I just didn't cry. And I don't necessarily go into love. I'm just really thinking about the emotion when Brother Russell over here said that, the fracture. And that, like, took me to a different place. And I started thinking about all the Black men in my life and how they love. And I was talking about on our podcast, Pivot and Proceed, I have a different group of friends with Black men, like my boys, that I know that I would die for, right? Saying I love you, I have to force myself to say it. It feels forced. Where I have different friends that from Bangladesh, Israel, and Jordan, it's a different dynamic. I've been saying I love you to them since I was 11. Same human being. But with Black men, I feel like I have to navigate it differently. Or even my boys, that almost have to be a joke. Hey, boy, I love you. I love you, right? And then the voice changes. It's not like I have to slide it in there as a joke rather than a sincere, just I love you. And I don't know
if in New
where
York,
that came
you gotta
from.
say pause.
Yeah.
So you started the conversation. You started with part of the introduction was being raised by dynamic and amazing women. And I'm gonna get to you, Russell, because I think a lot of this is gonna tie in. Like, what was that like, right? Because you started to talk about the women in your life. So you want to touch on that some more?
Yeah, absolutely. So, and when I was thinking about this morning, it was really my mom. Like, she's goated because she told me from a very young age, like, I prayed for you to be exactly like this, right? You were fought for, you were desired, and your responsibility is to be a light into this world, because that's what I prayed for you to be. So I always had this confidence and this responsibility to be a light and to be a love. So that was a center, like, that's a core piece of who I am as a human being. So even in times I felt less confident, I still had this responsibility in the back of my mind. And then I have 7 sisters. And when people don't really understand what that looks like, that's different human beings with different personalities, right? So some have that, like, that soft touch, like angelic, and some are heavy handed. Some that angelic light voice, they're gonna say it to you how you want to hear it. And some, like, they got that fire in the tongue, where it's like it can cut you, but sometimes you need to be cut to grow.
Right.
So over a lifetime, now I can accept all those different forms of love. Right. And it took a lot of growth and a lot of hurt, right? Because I was always a words of affirmation person. So it was easy to get the angelic voice, the soft hand, like, oh, that felt good. But when other, like, people say, like, that fire, that anger, that, that get your shit together, that you may get, that comes from a place of love, but it don't feel like love at all.
Gotcha.
At all. That cuts you.
Yeah.
And when you don't have a strong foundation, you sit in that dark, and sometimes you never get out the dark. And you push that person out your life, because I got enough negativity rather than this, just to add on to it.
Got you. Got you.
So
So
for me,
before we continue, let me bring on brother Augustine. We understand the internet issues. You know, everybody ain't got FiOS like we do here in the United States. So
Yep.
we just gotta make sure we listen. Y'all don't realize it's about 11 o'clock over there in the Netherlands. So we
11,
definitely
10.
appreciate you jumping on for this conversation, brother.
Yeah.
appreciate
You
you.
introduce yourself and tell the people what you do.
Yeah, of course. My name is Augustine. I work in communications, and like I said in my bio, I want to empower everyone to tell their story. I want to help them share it with the world because I think we're all incredible people. So yeah.
All right, awesome, awesome.
Yeah.
So brother Russell, and Augustine, the question that is at hand right now is at the bottom of the screen. If you want to take a look at it, give yourself a chance to respond. But Russ, what's your answer to the question? Is this, you know, that we don't know or we're not capable?
I don't think it's either. I think I think there's a lot of underlying questions here with that overarching question about love. I think the love piece is it sounds like it's more a question of expression. And everybody knows how to love, right? Everybody knows how they like to be loved, right? So one of the part of the question is about love language. And I think it takes some growth and maturity to really understand what your love language is and then what other people's love language is. And that comes from like doing the work yourself and then having the conversation and communicating with other people about how they need to be loved. I think it's not a black man thing. I think it's a human thing to love how you want to be loved. And it takes intentionality to love someone how they want to be loved. What feels, because it's intuitive, it's natural for you to, if gifts are how I feel loved, I may think that bestowing gifts upon other people is how they would feel. They would also feel loved if I did that. But if their love language is acts of service, well, if you're not serving me in some way or quality time, if you don't stick the time to spend with me, but you're giving me gifts, I may feel like I'm loving you, but you do not feel loved. So I don't think that's just necessarily a black man thing. I think that's a human thing. And I think that's an issue across the board. As far as hangups with black men and love, I think that there needs to be an understanding. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, I think this is where the whole state of the black man's mental health piece weaves in, because there's a lack of understanding of black men. There's a lack of understanding of what we actually go through, what we think about, what we deal with. And we've been trained to not express it in the most candid or the most healthy fashion, right? We revert back to whatever our nurture was, right? How we were taught to express ourselves or not express ourselves. How we saw love being expressed, and then we carry that forward, right? I think our natural state as humans is, I think there's only but so many variations of that, but how we're nurtured can change dramatically based upon your home dynamic. The brother Tunji said that he grew up with a lot of beautiful black women that loved on him a certain way. I also grew up with a lot of wonderful black women that loved on me a certain way. And I completely acted in ways that wouldn't be loving or honoring of those women because of my environment, right? So at home, my mother tells me how I was always a dark-skinned kid, right? And growing up in the 80s, like light-skinned dudes was a thing. And my mom would tell me how beautiful I was. And my aunts would tell me how beautiful I was, to the point where I tell my son how beautiful he is. And my wife will even tell you that she's never heard a man refer to himself as beautiful as much as her husband, right? But I grew up that way. So yeah, I do think I'm beautiful. And I think my son is beautiful. And it's it at the same time, that's at home. Then when you go outside, it's a whole nother story. When you go outside, you want to fit in. When you go outside, you want to assimilate into culture. When you go outside, you want to you want to be a part of, especially when you're young, you want to be a part of what's cool, what's popping, what you want to emulate and do the things that appeal to you. And if that's what you predominantly see, then that's how you're going to act and behave. If that's how you show, if you see men showing affection towards other men a certain way, you're going to take that on and you're going to carry that forward. If you see a men showing affection to other women a certain way, whether we consider it to be healthy or not, that's how I know to express my interest or my love or my whatever towards the opposite sex or towards the same sex. So I don't think it's a lack of ability to love or to articulate. I think it's a lack of actually wanting to understand, where do these men come from? How did these men grow up? What can I translate what he's saying to what he's trying to say? Because quiet is kept. We have to do that with pretty much all women, right? We have to decipher what it is you said from what it is you did, from what it is you meant. And it takes studying that woman and those women and those relationships to really understand that. I don't think that same grace or time or effort is given to men, particularly black men. And I think that is part of the mental health drawback, because we're just as human as everybody else. But when we're expected to give those considerations and put in that time and effort for others, and we are an afterthought at best in that regard, it weighs on us. So I'm happy that we have this space right now to kind of talk about that and open up.
Woo, that was heavy. That was heavy. I mean, listen, this is why I got you on. I mean, between you and Tunji, and listen, we don't know what brother Augustine is going to drop on our heads real quick.
Right.
So, let me hype you up real quick, brother Augustine. Go ahead and just, what are your thoughts on this topic, on this question real quick?
Yeah, no, I think I'm building up on, on what you said. I think it's just, yeah, the way we were loved and the environment that we grew up in. I think it just wasn't, if you don't see healthy love being modeled in how you were growing up, or just the relationships that you grew up around you, then it will be difficult for you to, one, not sabotage yourself when you have that good love that comes around, and also just having healthy people, or being and accepting and being happy for your friends for having that kind of healthy love. So yeah, so it's tough, but I think really it comes down to upbringing. Like, did you have a great father figure who really treated your mom really well, or treated other women really well? That's really important for me. So I was in Kenya this summer, and I've been having a lot of conversations with friends and saying, like, it will be really difficult for me to go back to reintegrate back with, being with my family and being with my friends, because I just don't see them treating women and loving themselves in that way when I compare it to, the life that I live here in the West. So really looking at someone's upbringing and having the grace to be like, okay, fine, this is why the way they are, but really holding them accountable to really take that journey to unlearn what they have done, and really it is up to them. Like, they have to be willing to go on that journey, unlearn what they've learned, and accept it. And I think that's where we also need to have a much bigger conversation. It's like, you also have to show the willingness, because I think number one is admitting that, but then also number two is taking that to the next level. But yeah, I think it's really important that men invest in their own, they do the test. What kind of love language do you value? What are the percentages? Do you like spending quality time? Do you like gifts? Do you like acts of service? I think really we need to invest more time in that. But Yeah, I think it's tough. Like you were talking about a lot of the things that black men have to deal with. So today I was just taking a walk down to the city because right now I'm in a different city from where I normally am, and like one of the things that I had to think about is like I don't want because I was walking behind a woman and I was just like, I don't want her to turn around and think like I'm following her. But again, those are just things that black guys have to think about. Like I had to move to the opposite side of the street because I didn't want her to think like that. So there are just so a lot of preconditions that come with being with a black man. So yeah, I think we just need to have more compassion for ourselves and really delve into that journey of really unlearning a lot of things. But it really you can tell a lot from how a black man loves based on how he grew up. So
So, and that's a great segue because not necessarily to a question, but I want to kind of bring something you both said in the conversation Tunji and I had. Um, we all have been loved on, right, by the women in our life. Um, but I think both Augustine and Russell mentioned that we've not really seen our parents show each other love the way that we want to. Like, do you feel as though that if there was a open and you actually tapped on it right on the head, Augustine. If there was an open expression of love between parents in front of their children, and I'm not saying all parents don't do this. I know some parents, some people are lucky to see their parents love on each other. But
yeah.
if we saw a healthy love on each other, do you think we would have been a lot further on in our ability to go
If
ahead?
you want to go first, go ahead, mate. I'd love to hear your thoughts.
I saw my parents love on each other,
Mm,
and I saw my parents love on each other in a healthy way. My parents' relationship was very it was hot. It was passionate. It was volatile. So that volatility comes with good and bad. Um, I the loving on each other. The love is such a weird, strange word to use because it's feeling and action, right?
Yeah,
Um,
Mm.
and passion.
you 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 you. Uh, if we saw conflict resolution, healthy conflict resolution with our parents, I think that would greatly impact how we were able to love and and the ability to translate and decipher between uh, love, like, dislike, hate, right, wrong. It seeing how conflict is healthily resolved is the I think the undergirding issue with the love conversation.
mm,
Yeah, and to build on that, like one of the things that I heard from this guy called Jay Shetty, I'm not sure if you guys follow him, but he said it's like it's not going against your person, but it's against the problem, right? So we have a problem and we just want to fix it. And sometimes just wearing the same t-shirt or same shirt, just knowing that you're both in the same team and you're trying to solve that problem is really helpful. So it's not about attacking each other or trying to one up each other. It's just a matter of like, hey, you hurt me and this is how I felt. And then the other person will be like, oh, but I didn't know that hurt you or whatever. So having that resolution happening in a healthy manner and taking that person's feeling into consideration. You may not agree with them, but you're always doing what you can to make them feel like they're loved and appreciated. But I think if we saw our parents having that healthy love and that love, because again, in a lot of situations, so I never grew up with perfect parents who were very lovey-dovey and were very caring for each other. It was very one-sided. So that really bothered me a lot. And there are a lot of things that I see in very not progressive societies like the global south. There are a lot of countries where it really annoys me because it's like the woman is doing so much to show love and affection to her husband or her partner, but it's not being reciprocated. And that really bothers me a lot because I think it's a 50-50 thing and it's a team thing. So I think if we saw women and men and we just saw, okay, and again, I don't, love is love and I don't want to put any labels in it, but I think if we saw two people really love each other and really appreciate each other and try to do what they can to make the other person happy, and then the other person does what they can to make the other person happy, then we're good, because you're putting my needs and I'm putting your needs, and I think everyone is always going to win. So it's something nice, because then it makes you not feel afraid to accept that love when it comes your way. So yeah, I hope that
That's
makes sense.
that's the action word I'm talking about.
Yeah,
And I think we could wrap it into service, right? You're if I am here to serve you
yeah,
and you are here to serve me. See, if I'm focused on me and you're focused on me, then who's focused on you?
there you go.
So when my efforts, I think I know that we spend a lot of time in relationships trying to get what we need,
Yeah,
as opposed to focusing our efforts on giving what is needed.
yeah,
And if we're both focused on giving what is needed, there will be no lack.
there you go.
Yeah, and I look
Yeah,
at it
let's,
kind of differently. Even when we talk about
yeah,
the parents piece, I didn't have like the lovey-dovey or even like the physical interactions in any type of way, like of seeing that example. But even when I look at love, I look at it deeper than just the man, woman, 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 whatever, just the romantic love type. I see the first baseline is that relationship with yourself. I think it was
yes,
Jordan Peterson, this psychologist, that said it's three relationships you need to center with yourself first. The relationship with you of your past, reconciling that and who that person was, being able to love that person. The relationship of you with your present, and the relationship of you and your future. When you can align those three U's, you respect those three U's, and you make decisions for those three, you go out into the world and love is a byproduct.
yeah,
Because I don't treat somebody trash in this moment because the me of the future may still interact with this person, right? So
absolutely.
it organizes all the different relationships. And my thing is, and people look at this differently, I call it a beautiful selfishness. Because, like you said, Russell, it's okay, let me serve you and then you serve me. But if I'm on 10% and I'm focusing on serving you, I'm only giving you the 10% I have left. And that's when people end up feeling drained and having nothing. But if I get myself right, and that's the thing, like talk about love languages, knowing what I need, like giving it to yourself, taking care of you, doing the things you actually love to do so you feel emboldened. So now when it's time to serve you, I can actually focus on you. I can see you. It's not coming from a place of lack or fatigue.
Yeah,
So my obsession is like black men, even me myself, why I can say the most blessed man alive, because I focus so much on taking care of me. So when I step out into the world, I step into this conversation, I'm locked in. I'm not dealing with insecurities or the issues or the problems that we all have going on. But I've taken care of myself so long for today, I can be here and in this moment. So my
yeah.
journey, when I talk about like love, it's not like going back to your parents' dynamic. And even what you said, my brother in the Philippines, tell me your name again.
Uh,
August,
Augustine.
yeah, yeah, Augustine, yeah,
Augustine. Yeah, you
yeah,
said
yeah.
that we have to unlearn. And I don't
Yeah.
agree. I feel like when you
Oh,
it's about learning new things, right?
yeah,
Because when somebody has gone through it and they have all these traumas and they learn a different way to respond,
yeah,
and you know what I've been through, and you know how I could respond,
yeah,
and I choose something else, that love means more.
yeah,
That love me, and even for you as an individual, when you know where you've come from and you're loving in a different way that you've learned, knowing where you've come from is that much more powerful. And it's
yeah,
a lighter burden. It's a more beautiful thing to learn something new and just looking at it as I have more strategies.
yeah.
So I definitely feel you, but I just look at it a little bit differently.
No, but
I
I
think
agree
that
with
I
you.
think the essence of it is the same. It's just
Yeah, it
the
Mm-hmm.
is.
the, the terminology. It's just the contemporary term for exactly what you just described.
Yeah,
Yeah.
100%.
Mm. So I wanna ask you guys this. So Ashley, co-host, co-founder of co-founder of Cheese Get My Cheese Back on My Cracker Foundation. She asked, do we feel like we need to increase the different languages amongst the love languages? Because we compromise or partnership is not a love language, right?
Mhm.
Um, do you guys think that this is something that needs to be a growing document so that we expand the ways in which we love, show love, and expect love? I mean, we can touch on that some more.
What I, no,
Go
no,
through it.
what I'm thinking about in this moment is, even when I think about the love languages, it's a great tool to understand love. But at the end of the day, it's just a tool, and people were loving and loving well and correctly before love languages were made. And like you said, when we focus so much on the tool, like this is the test, this is the defining thing, there, whenever you have a paradigm, there will always be people that fall outside of the paradigm. Always be. And every individual, I feel like, will fall out of the paradigm in one way or another. But when you're in that relationship, like I feel like love, like you said, Russell, like is that battle between love being a feeling and an action. I saw this quote earlier this morning, Alexander Solzhenitsyn. He said, in the West, we need to focus less on human rights and more on human obligation. And I feel like love is a decision and that feeling is the byproduct, right? You do the act and the feeling is what you get on the back end. So to me, love is like in that moment, that focus, that attention, that time. And when you start paying, like just giving somebody your focus, I feel like is the greatest way to love. To be no other place, but to be truly there, listening and present with that human being, then you understand how they love. People start to open up. Go ahead.
So I want to tap into something that Russell said. He's been shown love and been loved on all his life. And he's loved on and loved inappropriately in ways in his past, and nothing illegal, just being in the streets, right? And so and this is going to be to those, well, I guess this is me, once again. So let me throw some alley-oops real quick. So of the folks on this call that I know of, Russell and I are married, right? You see ring, babe, it's right here, it's on. Tunji and Augustine, are you guys in committed relationships, or are you guys still enjoying the free man life?
I'm enjoying free man life.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm coming out of a relationship.
Okay.
So yeah, I am free man life. Yeah.
And so this next set of questions is kind of building on this, right? Is to love the person that you're like, and this is romantic love, not just your friends, right? Do you find it in the relationship that ended or the relationship that was it that person that allowed you to love them, or were you just forcing it to the point where that's why you guys are no longer, right? So I'll take it a couple of steps back. At the beginning of the show, I talked about how I've confessed my love for my wife right now. For me, it was the right time and the right person, and me in the right mindset, right? I've been in therapy for over 5 years. The original reason for me to going into therapy was to determine if I deserve love, right? Just me diving into myself and understanding why am I not lovable, or am I just not seeing it from those that are giving it to me, right? And because I've done so much work on myself, I was able to receive the way my wife loves me. Prior to, it would have been overwhelming, overpowering, and I probably would have sabotaged it myself. For you guys, in or out of relationship, is it that person and or time in which you've met that allows you to be your full self to love that person?
Damn.
I my bad. That was a big question.
No, it's a good question.
Because like I said, for me, it was time and place, and it was also a state of mind. Both my wife and I went through some. She went through some self training. I went through some therapy. Well, not self training. She went through a training program that helped her understand herself better. I went to therapy to help me understand myself better. And honestly, if we have honestly crossed paths. So real quick story, if you guys don't mind me, because I don't really do this often. my wife and I went to Ghana the year to return 2019 at the same time. We were at all the same events. We crossed paths at least 3 or 4 times a day. We never saw each other. We got on a dating app and met each other as probably like third or fourth person that swiped on us. That's how serendipitous our relationship is, right? And so for us, it was literally right time and place. So for y'all, is it that same thing and you know, once again, the description of the one is different for everybody, but like, and I'll start with you, Russ, right? You are married, 2 children, well, 1 child, 1 on the way, and are forever fighting for love, right? What is it about your wife that made you realize, yo, I'm gonna fight for this one?
I'll answer with 2 things, and I was gonna jump in to give the brothers some time because I saw their wheels turning, and I know my answer because I should, right? So I'm at the place that I'm at.
Yeah.
It's a combination of what Purge said and what Tunji said. My wife and I have been together for a very long time, since 2005-ish, with, you know, some breaks here and there. But it was the therapy that we had to go through it was this big, ugly, decrepit building with the title School of Hard Knocks written across the entryway. So we grew up together. So we had to fail, and we had to fail again. And we had to fail to the point that if it's not always her fault, right? And it can't always be my fault. So at some point, you're going to have to look inside. At some point, it's not about that other person. To Tunji's point, it's about you, who you have been, who you are, and who you intend on being. And that's not going to be perfect at any of those stages, but can you reconcile that? Can you be good with that? Can you love that? And then can you look across the way and see that person as someone you want to build with? I think it was Toby and Wiggly said he doesn't believe the concept of in love. Right? You act out your love for that individual in the most appropriate manner possible. And as you grow and you mature, not the butterfly feelings, but other feelings that I can't even describe, sort of make their way into the equation and hold that bond together. It's a very humbling feeling. It's a very compassionate feeling. It's a very service-oriented feeling. And it's accompanied with a responsibility. So it took time. It took failure. It took tons of introspection. And honestly, if it wasn't me, it would be somebody else. And if it wasn't her, it would be somebody else. Because at the end of the day, we decided this is who I want to build life with. So whatever comes along with that, I accept. But I also need to know, and I need to see, and I need to feel your commitment to continue to grow and be the person that you need to be. Not the person necessarily that I need you to be, but the person that you need to be, and vice versa. That same commitment has to be on the other end. So let's grow as best we can as our individuals, with continuing to look up and look towards each other to bring that all together.
Mm, that's deep. And I'll add to that. Listen, couples therapy, counseling, it's not easy. Like, yo, one of the things that I had to not unthink or unlearn, but to pass or work through was the idea of, yo, this is too much work. I'm out. Like,
Yeah.
that's the easiest way to get out of a situation you don't want to be in. And you know, I remember breaking down a lot. Like, we're in arguments in the car, in the house, like never in front of people. That's the most, and it's like, yo, I don't know what more you want from me. You know what I mean? And it's tough.
There's
It's
a balance, man. It's there, something that was something that I've had to learn was there's a way to be right and wrong, and you have to learn how to be. You have to learn humility in both of those instances. Like, I was big on, this is wrong, and you do it anyway. Yet you have an expectation that I am then supposed to do the right thing, and what you do has nothing to do with whether I do. Whether you decide to do right or wrong has nothing to do with whether or not I do right or wrong. And I'm talking little things to huge things, the full gamut. And you have to give as much grace as you humanly can, because you do not recognize how much grace is actually given to you.
That's true.
That giving grace piece is massive. So even when you come across those instances where your significant other may have done the wrong thing, and you may have no part in it, like you just chose to do something that would be hurtful, harmful, offensive, whatever, you have to know how to take that and and work with your partner through that. Because, Augustine, to your point, it's about wearing the same shirt,
Yeah.
being on the same team, and you got to know that you and your partner are on the same team. And in the instances that you don't, you got to communicate, yo. Like, you have to be able to very clearly and depending on how your dynamic of your relationship is, candidly say, hey, this hurt me, this offended me,
Yeah.
and go from there.
and to add to that, one of the things that I learned was there's a level of vulnerability on the other side to tell you that.
Mm-hmm.
Right. It's one of those, like, I shouldn't have to tell you I'm hurt. You should know. But to come out and tell you I'm hurt opens up this, I'm working on that, another episode around vulnerability, but vulnerability is like, I'm literally opening up the gates to myself and letting you in, and having the fear that you might, lack of a better term, fuck it up.
Yeah, you might respond in a way.
And just in all the way we were just
and we hold, and 1 second, Tunji, and we hold the gates to that vulnerability so tight. It's like,
it's your armor.
You know what I mean? So yeah, there's that vulnerability on the other side of telling you that, yo, that hurt me, that bothered me, I need this from you. But my fault, brother Tunji. Go ahead.
No, all I was gonna say is just in the way we all responded right now when you said that word vulnerability. If I were to wrap up everything, you want to know if a black man loves you, and this is friend, brother, any type of relationship. Like you said, when you open up those gates and you take that risk, that's when you as a black man can realize, oh, I love this person. Like, because a lot of men just don't know. Like, what is that question? If you've opened up that space where I'm not, like, they could use this against me. You open up that space to share something, like, I'm showing a piece of myself that I instinctively, not only do I instinctively guard it, I've been taught to guard it. and then you find yourself opening it up, or you choose to open it up, that is saying like that person loves you. And this is, like you said, Russell, earlier, that's a human being thing. But with a black man, with all the layers of protection you have for yourself, when they open that up and they haven't been loved correctly, and they don't have that capacity, that strong foundation to fall back on, right? Some of them they're falling back onto, they don't have so many positive memories or all these different examples. So like how black men love, one way is vulnerability.
Yeah.
One way is vulnerability. And I think that's why so many women, black women, they hunger for it for so much, because they know intrinsically, like if that man shares something with me, okay, like that means something. But at the same time, if you use that against them, it's over with. It
Yeah.
is over with. When we talk about grace and coming back, that is difficult.
Mhm.
That
Yeah.
is when I tell you I open up the
Yeah, it's
gates
100.
and you in
Yeah,
anger, you
man.
go to that place and cut me down,
Yeah.
it is hard for me to ever look at you the same. Keeping it a buck. It is hard for me to ever look at you the same. It takes a strong man to be able to reopen up those gates
Yeah.
for that person.
Uh,
For that person ever again. And some people are in relationships with people they never opening up the gates for again. And they've told themselves that. Like, I ain't letting you back in any further.
Yeah.
Like, why? And this is their forever person. And that's what's so difficult. Because it takes a strong person to do that. And we got to get to the place where we're strong enough to show somebody else grace.
Right.
And hopefully, like, be with somebody that's strong enough to give us grace. So that's the
Perfect.
dynamic when we talk about love. Like, that's the hard piece.
I appreciate that setup because that's like the perfect. So I'll be vulnerable for a second with you guys because I feel very safe here. For me, I think that's also the reason why I was not. It's so ironic that I'm talking about this because I've only talked about this with very close people, but like I got my heart broken a long time ago, and it became really difficult for me to open up and be loved and open my love for for anyone from my heart. So when I got out of my first relationship, I was I went to uni and I had this really cool girl and we had a great time and I just wasn't ready to open my heart and let her in and it's ironic like about a year later I found out that we both liked each other at the same time, so it could have worked out, but I feel like everything happens for a reason. But to your point, and it makes a lot of sense because when you hurt me, I feel like black men go all in. Like when they open their heart, they go all in. I'm giving you everything, and I will give it to you slowly by slowly, but when I open and I feel like I've given you that vulnerability and you have accepted it well, you've not made me feel like you belittled me or whatever, then that's when I start opening up more and more and more. But when you show me that you can't, that you can't trust me, that you can't give me that space, that you can't allow me to be who I am, then it becomes really hard for me to open up. And I'm not doing service to the next person who is giving me the grace, is giving me the time, is giving me the patience and hoping that I can open up because you've hurt me, So I never opened up my heart for a while. And I wanted to work on myself. I wanted to better myself. But I think I'm now at a point where I feel like I'm ready and I'm 6 years after my first relationship and I think I'm ready, but there's just so much that, it's tough because it's like, can I be vulnerable again? Can I trust that that person will open that space for me to be vulnerable? And there's so much that comes with being a black man, and can that person handle that? Like that's also something that I think about. Do I also have am I being fair in asking someone to give me that space and grace to hold? Because there's a lot that comes with being together with a black man. Like there are all the prejudice that come, even though I may look fancy, I may wear fancy, I may come with good energy, I may smile, I may be all nice, there's still going to be people who are going to have a certain image of me in their head. So can that person handle that? So um, it takes a lot for a black man to really open up. So I feel that, and it's taken me a while, but I think I'm sort of ready to take that step. But
So let me actually, I want to
Wait,
expand on that real quick, Augustine. Go
oh, you
ahead.
can
can
I
answer
give
the
the
question.
opposite
Yeah,
real quick? Yeah, yeah.
Well,
And
but
you can jump in.
before you go to the opposite, I want to kind of address, because you know the Netherlands is a slowly growing diasporan community, right?
Yes.
And this is a lot to what Augustine was
Yeah.
alluding to, but not saying outright, right? You know, do you find it that it's difficult to love in the biracial relationships in Europe or just anywhere in the world? Because
Yeah.
you mentioned the prejudices, right?
Yeah.
And that automatically triggers to me that, okay, it's someone of a different race,
Yeah.
right? Expecting their families to accept you,
Yeah.
being confident enough that this person will receive you as you are. And then even to what you're saying, like, this is a person of another culture, another background,
Yeah.
like you said, taking on that role and responsibility and carrying the burden of being an ally, right?
Yeah.
That's a lot. Some allies don't know how to properly be allies. And
No,
so
of course.
do you find that that's something that's prevalent in that region of the world where biracial relationships are becoming more complicated because of this?
I mean, I was having this conversation earlier with a friend and with my friends, and I think it's becoming more accepted for sure.
Mhm.
But again, it's hard because um, there's a sense of responsibility that you have as a person, as a Black person, to teach them, hey, you can't say this, or consider how you would dress. Like, you want them to get along with your friends, you want them to get along with your family. There are going to be certain phrases, there are going to be certain things that they're going to do that you may have to do a lot of the work. But then again, the question then becomes, do they have to go and do all that learning for themselves, or do they, or do you have to take on that burden to teach them and to educate them? So it's becoming more widely accepted, but it also depends on the dynamic. So who is the one who has, so is it a white man with a Black woman? So again, the Black women will just be looking at at this, the people in society will look at this Black woman and be like, oh, she's just going after, they'll have their own prejudice, like, you're going after the money. And then he may not get the same prejudices. And then it's like a Black man with a white woman. Oh, you're letting your race down, you're going for the other side or whatever. So I'm seeing a lot of great things coming out of it. But again, yeah, you just have to ask yourself, like, is your relationship strong enough to be able to handle all the judgment and all the comments and everything that is going to come? So it really comes down to whether you guys are a solid foundation. But I'm seeing it go in a positive direction, and I want to believe that it's going to be good. But dating in the Netherlands is hard, so it depends on where you are. So,
Right. I appreciate that color, Tunji, Augustine, and
yeah, thank you.
being willing to answer that. And I didn't mean to put a bushel on your flame there, brother. The most blessed man alive. If you want
Please,
to tap on
love
that,
to hear your thoughts. Yeah.
please do so.
Nah, I was just thinking about like just because Augustine was like vulnerable, that vulnerability piece, and he spoke it from the sense of giving that person grace. And I just want to talk from the standpoint of, as a Black man, needing grace. And this thing that's special about grace is getting something you don't deserve, right? You've made a mistake and you don't deserve it, but you're desperately seeking it. And I was in a place of last relationship failing, and I take 100% responsibility because that's the only way I move forward with power, right? And be effective of saying, I failed in multiple ways and I needed grace. And it's understanding that you don't deserve it, right? And it's a risk to when you've hurt somebody, and it's hard when you hurt somebody that's the closest person to you, right? This is your best friend, there's all these different things, and you've hurt them. And especially when it hits on a level of, you've done a thing where it's like, oh, if somebody I love did this to me, I'm done, right? And that's a core thing you've said forever. And then you get to that place where that person that you're with does it. And you're standing there looking at them like, I am asking for something I would, and it's hard because you're asking for something that they would have every right to walk away and be done, to be done. And that grace is to say, looking at this person is like, okay, the light is worth the darkness. The light is worth the dark, because it's hard to be able to, like we said, like opening up those gates and saying, I'm gonna take this risk, because it's risking looking like a fool. So my relationship ended, in my personal opinion, because I didn't get the grace, and it's okay because it's not deserved. And it's understanding you can move forward. And when I talk about, like, I don't believe in like any one person is perfect for you. I believe in alignment and that decision making. Right? Sadhu Vaswani, this Indian educator, he said, love is selfless. It is prepared to sacrifice. And I think what you were talking about, Paige, is you were both in a place willing to sacrifice, willing to know yourself, willing to lean and to bend, and willing to see, as Russell said, how you can both come up together, and willing to shift and, you know, go through that school of hard knocks. And my whole thing is, when it's about moving forward, like my path and my vision forward is so clear that I'm not prepared to sacrifice, right? So it's like, I think it's everybody about finding that clarity and being in that place of knowing exactly what you want.
Yeah.
That authenticity, like you both said, it's so important to speak with 100% truth. And you have to know yourself to speak with truth, because it's so easy to lie to yourself. So people get into relationships and their true selves will unfold, and now you're making a decision where you are already in it.
Yeah.
Finding out who the person is, or you're letting that person find out who you are now, way deep into it, because you didn't know yourself. So my whole thing is like taking that journey for you and being in that place of saying like, okay, love is selfless. It's knowing in those moments, when am I prepared to sacrifice? And just to be vulnerable, that grace piece of, I think that definition is so important. Grace is giving what is undeserved.
Yeah.
It's giving what is undeserved.
I like that.
So the word hurt has come around a lot, right? It's tied with vulnerability, it's tied with love. So with love comes hurt, right? And how does that hurt change us, right? So, you know, Augustine talked about that hurt made him cautious to open up. And, you know, Tunji, the most blessed man alive, that hurt created a monster to motivate him to move forward. Me and Russell, that hurt had us doing things, but then we found ourselves, right? Like, how did that hurt change y'all to the point where you're able to overcome it, right? And have you overcome it?
No.
No? Oh, interesting.
No. The hurt is humbling.
Oh, yeah.
And it's ongoing.
Yeah.
And you recognize that you're in life, you are going to feel pain. You're going to suffer. Purge, you know, with a song we sing that's so dear to us, is through days of joy and years of pain. Days of joy and years of pain. So already we have imbalance. But that light is so worth the dark. So when you come to that understanding and recognizing that pain and struggle is part of the process, those are ingredients in the mix. Stop trying to remove key ingredients into what's making you into the best you, and what's making y'all into the best y'all possible. My wife and I are better today as people and as a couple because of the hurt. Not in spite of the hurt, because we hurt the way that we did and experienced what we have, we're able to enjoy those days of joy. Those days of joy are much more joyous now. You feel me? So no, I'm not selling no pipe dreams on this on this call and letting y'all know, oh, it's you, one day you get over. I don't believe that. I haven't seen that. I believe very much so what Brother Tunji said. When you get healthier, it's not, the weight don't change. I can just lift it. When I was unhealthy,
you couldn't lift it, yeah.
that I could tell that joker was heavy, man.
Yeah.
And it's still heavy, dog.
Of course.
But it's lighter, right? Because I'm better on the inside. I'm better on the inside. I'm better on the outside. And I'm better because of the hurt, the pruning. That's how things grow. You break them down, you give them rest and nutrients, and it grows. So as long as you're going to continue to be pruned for the rest of your life, hopefully, prayerfully, you will continue to be pruned and you'll continue to grow and bear fruit.
Yeah, and just to piggyback, like that's so real. Like it doesn't go away. You get stronger and you learn to use it. If you're wise, you learn to use it. Because that version of me is on the other side of this door. Right? Like I could easily be him. Like if I stop working, I'm him. And this ain't a good I'm him. Right? Like as we define it, as we want to define somebody like the black man I want to be. Right? No, real talk. And you make active decisions to stay on this side of the door. And part of staying on this side of the door is not forgetting. Because if you forget and you pretend that that's not part of your story, you wake up and you're that version of yourself again.
And you didn't even know.
Exactly, because you had to be him to get to this point.
How did I get back here?
Yeah.
Don't do it.
And that's like we talked about before. It's like respecting that past version of yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Like having that love in the sense of being you got me to this guy. And if I have to respect this guy to get to that next guy. But if you forget that old you'll wake up as him.
Yeah. That part.
Damn. I needed to hear that.
Yeah, bro. And once again, it's, you guys eloquently put it together. I couldn't have put it in better words, right? It's, I came in my relationship telling my wife about him. I was like, listen, that's who I was, but this is who I am. And being able to, and that's also vulnerability too, right? Yeah. Accepting that and being able to be like, listen, I don't mean to dump on you, but I'm gonna have to let you know some things so that you can accept me for who I am today and not what I've done or who I was in my past.
And understanding how I got to who I am today. I did not wake up like this.
Yeah.
Listen.
Yeah. Like you said, it's not a fairy tale, right? Strength comes from somewhere. Strength is always built. True strength is always built, right? And it takes, like you said, that process of being broken down, of making mistakes, of like going through it. Like, and I always, when I think about other black men, I think about the journey is being willing to take it. You said something earlier, Augustine, that I thought was, this powerful of, and I felt convicted. Because when you said, like, we all have to go on that journey for ourselves in order to figure it out. But when I've been loved correctly, and like Russell, you said, you've been told, like, growing up that you were beautiful. Like, I was told similar things, and then I went outside and was a disconnect. But my home was where it it made sense. Even though I went outside in the world and be like, nah, I'm clearly ugly. Like the numbers game don't lie. Yeah. But that foundation, now I'm reaping the benefits of it 20 years down the road. So there are people that they're ugly out inside the house and outside. That I feel like it's my responsibility. When we talk about the most blessed man alive, it's the responsibility to bless back. It's the responsibility to step out into the world and be a black man that like, nah, I love you, bro. Like step into a school, talk to kids, like talk to y'all and be like, I love y'all. And just like have that energy. Have that energy because it's twofold. We have a responsibility to give what has been given to us at the very least. And if you were loved correctly, like you giving it to your son. But my challenge to myself and every other black man that's in a place to is to like let it go beyond just your household.
Hmm.
Like let it go beyond.
Hey, Purge, I got a question for you, brother.
Shoot.
Just piggybacking off the topic of this call, have we? You probably knew I was going to go here. Have we asked the question if the masses know how to love a man or a black man?
And that's
Those are two distinct things.
that's what they're learning today, right? So think about it. The idea of this show or this episode was, and let's be 100% honest here, right? If y'all look at the chat, it's 100% women today, right? I mean, we got roughly 15 people on the live. I want to say maybe 14 of them are women, right? Unless one of y'all are watching yourselves. And I think with everything that we do here on the State of the Black Man's Mental Health, it's teaching them how to love us as Black men. Everything we've talked about is expressing to them, look, we're not necessarily giving you a guide, but we're giving you the information to love us. That's whether we're in the streets like Tunji and Augustine. I'm just joking. Whether we're married, because think about it, right? There's not a one Steve Harvey book for all Black men, right? Think Like a Man is not a one all. This is every man in every situation. But being able to have these conversations, although it's healing for us, it's informative for them as well. Yeah. And I hope I'm answering your question in the sense that as we start to answer some of these tough questions, and I don't, maybe to y'all it weren't tough. I appreciate you, Augustine, for really being vulnerable in this conversation. But this is showing that Black men are willing and want to be open with the women in our lives and the women we want to love. And I ain't gonna lie to you, both Tunji, I've been getting DMs on the left-hand side asking about you the whole time because you've been dropping dimes. You know what I mean? But I think in everything that we do and in the series that I have coming up, How Black Men Love is the tip of the spear. We're going to talk about vulnerability. We're going to talk about masculinity. We're going to talk about hyper masculinity, right? We got to chip away at it. I don't think there's a one, like this conversation could go on forever, right? But I want to be respectful of your time. And I want to be respectful of the people that's watching. But we're going to break this out to the point where if you guys want to be part of this conversation and creating what the next iteration of this conversation could look like, I welcome you all to help with the production call on that. But to answer your question, we are giving them some of the recipes, right? We're telling them, look, our past selves, they're our past selves, but they've made us who we are today. We're telling them we want to be vulnerable. We're telling them we are capable of loving. We're telling them that the way to my heart is to just accept me, to love me, to understand me. And to go back to your first episode is to listen to me, to see me, to hear me, to be in the moment with me. And so we're really touching on, you guys don't realize there's paper and pen like hitting all crazy on the other side right now. And I really want to appreciate y'all for really diving in. And I knew with the group of people I had, y'all was gonna drop some things on the folks.
Can I share a story?
Go ahead.
Russell, were you about to speak?
I was going to say, Purge, I set you up. I wanted you to say that. I wanted you to say, I wanted you to explicitly articulate all of that.
I already know it. I appreciate you, good sir. Go ahead, Tunji.
One thing when I talk about I didn't really think about it like as a how-to guide, like somebody on the pen and paper on the other side, and something that sits in my soul, not just like from a relationship dynamic and greater. So one thing I do is I substitute teach. I try and substitute teach 5 days a week. excuse me, 5 days a week, 5 days a month, and going to the different schools and interacting. My heart is for young black men. And I'm sharing this story because it's like a beautiful burden now. I did this thing where I went in and asked them their name and the meaning of their names. And then like we Googled what their name meant, and we brought their first name and their middle name together to make something powerful. Right now, I can't give an example. It's okay. I'll give this example. One of the students, his name was Paid, right? And he said, my father made a bet when I was born that if I lost, he'd name me Paid, and it's kind of stupid, and he was hanging his head. And I said, that's not helpful, right? You want to have a name that like every time you hear it, like subconsciously, you get a little bit bigger. Because my name is Tunji, the king is reborn. And anytime I say it, I'm like, okay, yeah, I'm a little bit of him. And I said, so your dad was so true to his word. He could have said, nah, bump that. I'm not naming my son Paid. But because he was so true to his word, he named you Paid. And what does paid mean? Coming through on a debt. Your yes is your yes, your no is your no. Right. And the first thing I walked into the classroom, they were talking about some nonsense. And he's like, I got to make money. I ain't got time for that. This is a ninth grade. And I told him all those things. And he stood taller. And then we went through like a 4-year plan. And after that, what he could do with the skills he had now. Right. And I was doing this for all these different students, and they felt taller. And this young chocolate brother, I didn't get to him. Right. And a few students I didn't get to. But the next week, one of the students hit me up and he was like, something you want to know. And he talked to me after school and he said the brother took his life. Like he took his life. And then I looked at the paper and I didn't get to him. Right? Like he was the next name on the list that I didn't go through his name. I didn't go through his story. I didn't go through his long-term vision. And when I tell you that hit my soul, because what we all need, when you talk about loving, it's not just accepting who I am now. It's giving me a pathway to be better. Having a high expectation for me and loving me on the way to the journey there. In my highs and my lows. If you're upset, it's upset because you see me as great. To see the best in us as black men. To see the best in that black man and reach for it, like giving a pathway to get there. So one thing I do is like that, when we talk about hurt, part of my hurt is the responsibility of knowing I was one of the persons that didn't come through for him, right? I was one of the people that didn't deliver. When we talk about using that pain, I need that moment. I have to decide that was supposed to happen. So the next young man I deliver for. Yeah. What I can do, I actually do. I have to think about it that way. I have to, and I choose to.
And that don't go away.
It doesn't. It will never go away. I'll remember this for the rest of my life. And this was last 2 weeks ago. So the thing is being able to use it and like looking at each other as black men and finding the best and holding that to the standard and saying, oh, what you could be in 3 years, in 2 years, in 6 months, in 5 years. And you look at somebody like that and they start to look at themselves like that. And that's what I want for myself. And that's what I want for all of us as black men.
Yeah. That's why I think this conversation is important. Like you said, I mean, it's good for us to inform the women, but I think it's also important for us to share with the men and show them that it's okay to have these conversations. And it's important to have these conversations. So I think that's also a byproduct that I see, Paige, with this conversation is I feel like everyone should send it to a black man in their life and just be like, hey, consider taking this out and, check out the series that is going to come out, because there's a lot, like, there's so much that I would love to go into with masculinity, because I just have really quite, hot takes on that. I think, we need to undefine it. So I would love for you guys to, I'm so excited to have this conversation, because I think it's really, really important that black men feel comfortable and feel like they have the permission to have this conversation, because I feel like we haven't given them the space. We haven't given them people and role models and people they can look up to be able to do that. A lot of them may not have that in their life, and a lot of them are very blessed to have that in their life. But I think that's also a group of people that we should consider speaking to and saying that this is important for you to have that, because to your point, it's showing them that plan, but then also showing them that it was in there the entire time, and they just needed someone to believe in them for it to get out. So I think it is so powerful to see someone like you achieving the things that you want to achieve, and them coming down to your level and saying, I know you can do this. I know you can get to that place. And it's really remarkable. And I'm so glad that I've had people who have done that for me in my life. And I would love to do that for as many people who I can. And I do that as much as I can. But I think this is an important conversation that we need to send to Black men to say, have a chat, get deeper, have good, deep, and important conversations, because we need to have these conversations. So let's not forget that audience in mind.
Appreciate it.
Yeah.
And Augustine, that's the whole
Yeah.
purpose of the show, right? Like, we Black men got to see themselves within each other,
Yeah.
and see that the
Facts.
struggle. We think about mental health in general as a Black community. We think we're we think we are on our own island, right? And at the end of the day, if you just look up, it's more than an island, right? I mean, you go past the trees, you see another person. You go past the trees, you see another person. Next thing you know, you're an entire continent of people going through the same thing,
Yeah.
right? And look at us here. Like, we got Atlanta, we got DMV, and we got the Netherlands. So you mean to tell me this Black man thing ain't just in the United States?
Nope. No.
Can't tell me we're literally on an island. This is global, right? And so I appreciate you all. I want to leave off with two things. The first thing I want to ask you guys is, when it comes to love, what would you tell your younger self about love and loving those around you?
Ooh, that it's okay to, even if you didn't have that modeled love growing up in the relationships around you, or just in your parents' relationships or whatever, that it's okay to accept it and don't sabotage or self-sabotage when it comes your way, and really embrace it. It's going to be a journey for you to embrace it, but I think it's important to just embrace it the way you can at that moment, in that way, and then really don't take it for granted, because people love you and people see you in a way that is so beautiful that you may not see yourself in that way. And I think it's important to give them the space to let them love you and appreciate you for who you are. That's what I would say.
I would say love yourself from the point of overflow, and give from overflow.
I would tell myself that it's not a destination.
It's a journey.
It's not something to be achieved or to be possessed. It's
Yes.
it's very experiential, and it is both action and feeling, but it make sure you prioritize the action over the feeling.
Amazing.
Yes.
Amazing.
Yes.
And the last thing is, how do we continue this conversation in our communities?
Ooh.
Oh, Augustine's just told you, man.
Yeah, man.
Keep it going.
You send this to
Help
you
go.
send this, yeah. You send this to a person that you know that you think will really appreciate it, and then challenge them to also send it to someone else, and then have them listen to it, and then start that conversation with them, and then it will be a ripple effect with all this, and cultivate a space where they feel safe to do it, and know that you have to chip away at it, and they will slowly open up, but don't do it all in one go, because I think you'll unfortunately, you may end up losing some, and some may lose interest, and some may not really want to do it. But send this episode to them, and then chip away at it.
Appreciate it.
I got an idea.
Yeah.
Tunji, you said it earlier on that it, especially when there are different types of relationships, and when we're with our homeboys, or a certain group of our homeboys, expression is different than with another group.
Mm-hmm.
Hit up one of your homies today and tell them you love them, and just ask them how they doing. Out the blue, no, you don't. You're not trying to catch up on nothing in particular. Just start the conversation with, "Fam, you know I love you," and then ask them how they're doing. and see where that takes you. And if it's not one homeboy, make it 6 homeboys, make it 12 homeboys.
Make a note.
Yeah. No, I have that, like, to piggyback off Russell. That's a daily habit of mine. Like in like my program is called Low Lift Uplift, where you just go a little bit out of your way to make somebody's day, right? And like you said, that focus, just that I love you. And if you want to add to that, think of a specific moment where they've done something for you or you did something with them that gets you to an emotional place, and leave it as a voice message. So this is strategic. This is a beautiful selfishness, right?
Yeah.
Leave it as a voice message and say, I can't talk right now, but just know I love you this moment. Share the moment. Be like, all right, I'll holler at you tomorrow or in a few hours. And then let your imagination run wild. They may be going through it and they may say, oh man, I needed that so much tomorrow. Or they may say, oh, I appreciate it. Either way, your imagination will take you to that place where you're walking on a cloud for a little bit. You got 30 minutes or an hour, however long, however deep you go into that emotion, that's however deep you get that emotion for. And you don't even have their response. It's like giving a birthday gift that you know someone's going to love.
Yeah.
And you get the response without having to buy anything, have them there. And then you do that every day. Days start coming into months and life is just light. So to do that specifically for Black men, I think is powerful. It's powerful to make that a thing. I just do it in general, but to make it a point to do that for the Black men in my life, I think that'll be powerful.
I'll do that.
Well, you gentlemen have made this an amazing episode. I am so touched and grateful and blessed to have all of you. I feel like I'm the most blessed man alive, but Tunji,
talk. Yes, sir. No, use it.
You know what I mean?
Use it. One day I'll be gone and hopefully 10, 20 Black brothers arguing over who's the most blessed man alive.
And conversations like this validates the need for this platform. And so I thank you guys so much. There are times where I may bug you out. Did you get the link? Did you get this? I really wanted to make sure this happened. You know what I mean? I'm really dedicated to making this work. And so I from the bottom of my heart, I thank you all. Once again, this is the State of the Black Man's Mental Health. A program sponsored by Getting My Cheese Back on My Cracker Foundation, a nonprofit focused on removing the negative stigma around mental health in the Black and brown community. We really want to make sure you guys around the world understand that you're not alone and there are spaces for you to talk your talk. So with that being said, Tunji, you want to drop your podcast and your website so that people know how to find you and talk about that 6 drops, or you're not. It's up to you. But I think Tunji has an amazing program going on.
So the vision is self-sustaining and thriving Black communities. How we get there is 100 million Black men chasing flow state. That's the healthiest version of yourself. That's the pocket where your healthy habits, you got to click it mentally, emotionally, physically, spiritually. You have a vision of yourself that like, if I just chase this, everybody in my life gets blessed. And we have a program, like I said, I chaired Drop 6, Low Lift Uplift, but it's the mental piece, the emotional, the nutrition, the workouts, everything you need in order to thrive. So the website is www.rhyme, as in I'm rhyming, llc.com. The organization is Ruggedly Handsome Young Men's Establishment. And my whole thing is Black men thriving. Everybody else, it's an establishment, so it's a public institution, but everybody else is going to get blessed as a byproduct of Black men getting blessed. So that's off top. Secondly, I'm on a podcast, the Pivot and Proceed podcast, with my beautiful and brilliant co-hosts, Zuri and Kamal. And that's on all streaming platforms, Pivot and Proceed. We just ended season 1, and it's one of those things, it's alignment. It's special, it's dope, it's great organic conversations like we had here. So show it some love. And yeah, hit me up on the website wherever, and I'll show you love back. I like to give that mama level of support where, oh, I'm having this event. Somebody needs to stack chairs. I will stack chairs. If you're in Atlanta, hit me up. I'd love to support you too.
Well, once again, this is the State of the Black Man's Mental Health, and I enjoy this conversation, and I hope you all have a rest of your day. Gentlemen, stay on real quick.